disciplined
I
as
have
a
a picture of
college.
my parents, and they have the coolest like North Central Bible College shirts. Like they have like a zipper, you know, like those little look '50s ones with their school logo. Oh, it's so cool looking.
Where are those? Some box somewhere.
You know,
probably.
when I was there, every
so
door
strong.
was locked except for the bookstore. Everything is secure entrance. You can't get in anywhere on the
They banned me from campus.
Did they? Oh, they love to ban people from campus.
Were you street preaching or something?
No, I was there invited to speak at a conference for the Society of Pentecostal Studies. I saw you with your cute little hat on walking into the gym today. I was in the spinning class.
You did?
Waved to you.
You were in the spinning class?
You were like
Wow.
clawing your way through snowbanks.
Hey, welcome to Doug Pagitt Radio. Fancy Hat Day edition. Thank you for bringing that up, Tony. Jay, I have brought fancy hats for our interview.
Nice.
Here with Victoria, who always wears a fancy hat, as you can see. And Jay.
Mine's a toupee.
And Jay also busted out the glass.
Sweet.
So we're gonna
This
get
thing on?
this. We're gonna get this.
Yeah, are we starting?
On? Are we done?
Oh, we're on. No, we're on.
Is this
Oh,
is this
you got all
video
this?
feed work?
Yes.
Where's the cameras?
Well, you know, you don't need to be worried about where the cameras are. What is it with you bakers? Let's start with that one. What is it with you bakers? And the first question is always, where are the cameras?
I don't want the cameras.
You know, had
Just
your
don't look at
your
the
father
screen.
thought of that question before that hotel visit?
Yeah. Well, he still has cameras. He's back on TV.
Yes.
Yeah. And he has a hotel.
Was he not caught with a
And all those people can come for free. Actually.
was he not caught with a woman on camera? Was he not secretly videotaped?
No.
Is that just in my memory?
Nope.
Was he caught with a woman?
Nope. You're thinking of Jimmy Swaggart. Now there was the.
Oh boy,
there
I
was
sure am. And all the time I've imagined I've
there
seen videos
was
of your father with a
I
woman.
mean, my dad did have an affair, but it was.
Oh, there we go.
But there was no photos or anything like that.
And the affair was long over when they.
And it wasn't. I mean, it was
when he admitted it.
And by affair, I mean like it was what happened once.
Oh, I see.
But the iconic.
My parents were actually. My mom had left
the
my
iconic
dad. That was
image-
the real scandal.
Your
When
mother
mom
was
left your
what?
dad?
My mom had left my dad at the time.
Yeah.
Which that never came out. Because,
Oh, isn't that interesting?
The iconic image of his dad is, I think, handcuffed, crying, maybe with wasn't it like a raincoat over his
Yeah.
handcuffs in front of him? Like I have this
Yeah.
very, very
Well, you know what happened?
big
Put a
brother
hat on.
do.
You should put a hat on.
His psychiatrist gave him a pill that he started to hallucinate,
Really?
and so he couldn't show up to court. And they had to sent the court police, whatever,
Really?
to get him, and they took him to a mental hospital. The judge was really
Oh,
hardcore.
so awful.
Yeah, so they wouldn't give him a day off.
I hear those North
Is this
Carolina
true?
judges aren't super
Well, this is
graceful.
Yeah.
Well, his nickname was Maximum Bob. Literally, he did not. He was going to retire, and he stayed on to do my dad's trial. He held off his retirement.
Really?
Because talk a
ain't
little bit
easy.
about
What,
that, Jay.
like-
What was it about your dad and your mom? They were obviously iconic characters in popular culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was someone who's a listener of the show, a supporter of the show, who I happen to know because I know his daughter. They had a dog named Tina Fey because she had these long eyelashes. on
You
the
mean
dog.
Tammy Faye? Tina Fey's
Tammy
the
Faye.
other one.
Yeah, Tina Fey. Tammy Faye.
I've
That's
always
your
wondered
mom.
if Tina Fey was named
If
after
she had
my
a
mother.
scar on her
That's
face,
your-
it might be Tina Fey.
That's your mom. She was named Tammy Faye, which I mean,
Yeah.
like these are just Minnesota.
Well, my mom was born and raised in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, they're just average, ordinary people. But your mom was so iconic. Your dad was so iconic. Like here
Yeah.
we are, three other people have no way of knowing your parents.
Yep,
You
and
know,
I'm-
as people, as human beings.
And I have my own career, and I'm still talking about my parents.
That's right, and you're still talking about them, and we all know about them.
My
What
good friends are still bringing it up.
are still bringing it up right now?
Yeah,
Like that's happening right now.
That's happening right now. Like I asked a question. You know what's his name? What's the guy who does like all the theology shows, video things?
Steve Knight? What?
No, he interviewed.
Trip Fuller?
Yeah, Trip Fuller and Bart Ehrman. I asked him to ask Bart Ehrman a question for me, and he did. He's like, this televangelist son wants to blah blah blah. I'm like, when is it going to be that it's like, oh, this guy Jay, who's a pastor, who wants to know, or this theologian, this awesome.
Well, that's what I want to
theologian.
ask you about. What is it, do you think, that's so lasting? First of all, about your parents, and secondly, why do you think a judge like the one you mentioned, this hardcore Bob or long-term
Maximum
Bob or
Bob.
Maximum Bob, would go to such an extent to do bad things to your dad?
Well,
like
my
what
parents-
is it about that?
My
what
parents
do you
were
think?
really famous at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, extremely famous. And I think what it was is that people were waiting for someone in the church to screw up. You know what I mean? People
I see.
were,
So
you
they
know,
were taking
people
on
were-
all the.
And I think when my dad was the first to fall, it just everybody took all their bitterness and anger towards Pat Robertson, Oral Roberts, even him and everybody, and it just was kind of like, see, we knew these TV preachers were bad, and so they got lumped in with all that. Now ministry started to fall after that, but really my dad's scandal, their PTL scandal, was the first really big one to happen, and so they kind of got the whole focus of the brunt of it.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't raised in Christianity, so I only knew of your parents in sort of popular culture.
Yeah, like my parents weren't conservative Christians.
No, they didn't seem like bad people to me. Like my own sort of disillusionment early on with Christianity, or just being sort of bizarre, the times I would see your parents on things, they didn't seem like the bad guy to me.
Right.
Like who pitted them as being the bad guys all the time? Like they seemed
Jimmy
like
Swaggart and Jerry Falwell. I mean, both of those
the
guys.
other religious people.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until after the fall.
My dad
before?
had to kick Jimmy Swaggart off the PTL network because he kept preaching against my dad on his network. I mean, it was always politics. They were always playing politics, and all these guys were huge. And my dad would start something. He started the 700 Club. Literally, like he worked for Pat Robertson and started a late night show, and my dad called it the 700 Club. And then my dad started TBN with Paul and Jan, and then they left that, and then they started PTL. So whenever my parents would leave, they would kind of start something bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think so. And my dad wouldn't work with the conservative right, so he didn't believe in doing that stuff. So I think they didn't like him because he wasn't a team player with the religious right, and he was,
Yeah.
My parents were just, they wanted to do like entertainment and make people happy and be like, you could be a Christian and have fun. And
if you get a chance, I really recommend this documentary called The Tears of Tammy Faye.
The Eyes of
Tammy Faye, which really humanizes Jay's mom. I mean, you're in love with her by the end of that movie, I think, that documentary, because it just shows how, like,
I would say
she was a pioneer in the acceptance of gay people, and she's coming out of the Assemblies of God.
Yeah,
she
that
was
kind of
thing.
Interviewing people with AIDS in 1983, and Ronald Reagan hadn't even talked about it yet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it was, and I have people who come up to me all the time and say stuff, and for the longest time I thought, are they confused? Is this right? And then I was at a MCC event, and they showed the video footage, and I was just like, oh, well, there it is. And so I've had people walk up and be like, in the 80s, all my friends were dying and no one was talking about it, but I turned on Christian television and your mother was talking about it and talking to, interviewing someone with AIDS. And so that's a weird, strange legacy. And the one thing is most people under 30 don't remember it.
Yeah, sure.
So they're trying to like, well, I know the name, I've heard it, I'm not sure. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't know.
Yeah, a long time ago. Well, I don't know. I mean, certainly not my place. I wasn't part of that community, and I don't speak for everybody. But I'm just sorry to you, and sorry to your parents for all the bad way they were treated. I mean, I don't know if you hear that enough.
Yeah.
But it was really ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of gloating that there was in Christianity. Around the fall of your parents, it's really ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
I mean, it's So,
yeah,
we don't have to talk about that anymore.
No, it's fine. It's just I just remember like one of the Ted Koppel saying it was the easiest interviews. I mean, the easiest thing to research. He said because all the Christians were calling him.
Giving him dirt on your parents.
Yeah. I mean, it was just one of those things where people were just unloading, and I mean, that's.
It's a pretty ugly testimony to a Christian community.
Well, and the thing is, I think when I look back, I think the churches. This is where I have a problem with denominations somewhat. Is that I felt like why couldn't even mainline people come in and say we want to help or restore? Why can't we do this? But we all have these invisible walls, and we think we can't work with each other or help each other. And I think that's ridiculous, And I wish we could take down these walls because it seems like we're a million miles away from each other when we're in these different denominations.
Right. Yeah.
And we're still the church, and if we're all different parts of the body, can't the denominations be different little parts of the body? Little moles that we have? I'm just kidding. I love denominations. Lutherans.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to start with a love affair, I wouldn't think I'd start with the Lutherans. So
I love the
that's tough love right off the bat.
Go easy
Oh,
on the poor
no,
Lutherans.
I-
The Lutherans got the right on last week.
They did. Lutherans. Every once in a while, you throw a little bone out to the Lutherans. You better. You don't want them on your bad side.
The LCA, man, those guys are awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jay. let's hear what Jay is up to. So, for people who don't know, your adult life, you have started a number of communities in Arizona. Is that right?
Started in Arizona.
Moved to
Atlanta for
Atlanta.
Like, 11 years, something like that.
Then up to New York.
Yeah.
And then a couple of different places in New York, and now in Brooklyn.
We're in Brooklyn and Williamsburg.
Brooklyn.
We've been in the same place since we've been there.
All right. So tell us what tell us what you all do at Revolution Church now at least.
We're a church
in
and a bar, and we have service once a week at 4:00, and it's very honest and very transparent. And you can I bring my doubts as much as I do with my faith. I mean, I've sat in front of I've had conflicts in my faith and been able to share it with my community. And, it's just kind of a group of people who live in New York, and they're all moving fast, and I find it amazing that they're willing to come and sit down for an hour a week. And it's kind of like a waiting room, like you're either on your way out or your way into church, kind of.
Does the bar open?
Yeah, the bar's open. They actually open up an hour early for us, and the actual physical bar is, yeah. So yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, someone speaks for an hour or less. We don't have music. We only have 1 hour because there's an open mic right after. It's like a little railroad cart that we meet in, and we've been great. We've been able to have a lot of cool speakers. Tony Jones.
And you do it most week. Like, is that part of what you do?
Me,
That's
Me or
kind of
Vince.
your thing.
Yeah, Vince is my co-pastor. So do that, and
Love that guy.
Yeah, Vince is awesome, and yeah, it's just been great. I mean, we've had all sorts of people. We have people come and talk about why they lost their faith. We had Gene Robinson. He came and spoke for us. So it's like
he was the first ordained Episcopal gay bishop.
Yeah. And Pete Rollins is there kind of on a regular basis. When I can't think of anything, I have to.
He's not a
beg
bishop,
him
is he?
To speak.
Pete? No?
He's the bishop
of the underworld.
Yeah. The first gay bishop of the underworld. Is that what he has in common?
Yeah, he's the bishop of doubt.
The river Styx.
And what else do you do? So you do that. You're a writer.
Yep.
Or you're a communicator through books.
Yes, I work with the writers because I have dyslexia. So it's really tough for me to spell and write. So I always we sit down and we work it out through words and stuff. And I think it's important. That's why I have a co-writer's name on my book, because they've asked me to do. You could just do a ghostwriter. But I grew up knowing all these maybe famous preachers who had ghostwriters, and they make everybody think, everybody's like, oh, brother so-and-so's genius. And I'm like, that guy doesn't even know he has a book coming out. You know what I mean?
Ghostwriting, there's good money in ghostwriting.
I have the one.
Victoria's a ghostwriter.
Are you?
For who?
Ghostwriter.
Well, not a ghostwriter. You're an assigned writer.
Oh, but sometimes write for hire. Yeah,
if you're a ghostwriter, you're not supposed
your name
to
is
tell
on it.
who it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I have the name on it, but like Mel White wrote. My parents had an autobiography was being written when everything fell apart, so the book never came out. So I have the one copy. I mean, it's literally just pages, typed out pages of that. Because Mel White used to also, the head of Soul Force, he also used to write like Billy Graham's sermons. Write them, put them under the door. So growing up and seeing all that kind of stuff, you kind of thought, I want to let people know that if you do have dyslexia or a fear of writing, you can have people help you, and it's okay. And I think my books come out better because Andy, who I'm working with now, I mean, he pushes back, and he asks like questions like, well, what about when my daughter's 14 years old and I want to tell her this A, B, or C, and I go, oh, and it makes you think about how it works.
We were just talking about this last night in our sermon discussion at Solomon's Porch last night for Romans, because there's like this little bit in the end, like, what was his name? Titanicus or something. I'm Titanicus. He was writing this.
Tertius,
yeah, something like that. There's a lot of T's.
See, I'm following.
Who writes the book of Romans?
Yeah, you're following in the biblical tradition. Yeah.
Man.
This guy's very Paulinian. You should ask him.
Scribe.
He loves
Really?
Paul.
I do too.
Paul.
I've really fond of the fella.
Yeah.
We just finished reading the book of Romans, and we read it out loud as a community. The whole thing, finished it last night. It's a totally different read when you read it out loud and when a whole community does it.
We did
over
that at Revolution
4 or 6 weeks,
years and years and years ago.
Oh,
and
really? So what are you
we
saying?
had a
that
huge,
we're like totally behind the
totally
times?
behind.
we're
Romans is over.
We're not hip.
No, but
Wow.
we actually went
Hang on a
out
second.
and had a pizza party. Like afterwards, because there was like 50, and we were having to do a lot more at this time because I wasn't taking too many chances, but I think we had like maybe 75, 85 people at the spaghetti factory,
Yeah.
which is a nightmare.
Yes.
But to celebrate that, because when you read Romans, I mean, it's a long book,
It's a long book.
and you go through it, and we were all just like, thank God we're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
You know.
It's better than Genesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've read a lot of books out loud, but it's a totally different read. And Paul is a conflicted character. One really finds. We finished the book of Romans last night. It really had this sense because it ends with all these greetings at the end, right, which
Yeah.
people think are not interesting. I thought was the most interesting part of the whole book because it really tells you that there was an entire community of people that Paul was writing to. Is all these greetings, people that he knew and was waiting to see, but had never visited them, had never been there.
Right.
Right. Maybe had heard of some of them or met them somewhere else on some travels, but had never been to their places, but knew all about them. And then had this group of people with him who were also sending their greetings. And one of the people, notes himself as Tertius as being the scribe who's writing all that down. Then other people add their greetings. And so we started to notion up the idea that it's very possible that this whole letter was written from that community of people with Paul in a much more dialogical way than Paul sitting alone in some cell or in the back of a chariot,
Well, it seems that way
internally
because
journaling or
of how
something.
he goes
So
up and down, and in
uneven.
1 minute it's like everyone's accepted, and no one that
Yeah.
gates of hell will not prevail.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like, but don't
Yeah, but then be careful of this. And
Yeah.
it feels like a conversation
Yeah, like
like
you're
this.
kinda
right?
going
Yeah.
up
Little
and down.
schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had dyslexia. He was schizophrenic.
He had an eye problem or something,
Fine.
right?
Yeah.
He had some sort of funny business.
Yeah,
he
wore
wore fancy
glasses,
glasses,
lost
which
his
people
hair,
didn't know
wore a
that. Yeah,
hat to cover it
so he
up.
wore a hat all the time and had his knuckles. I've
his
heard that
knuckles
he
tattooed,
in a ceremony.
Yeah, it was a ceremonial
in
thing.
Centuria, I think is where it happened. That he said as an act of
I love
obedience.
Paul. I love Paul because I don't know if he's as much as conflicted if he has just got so much inside of him that he wants to share. And I think when he pulls back, I think you see some of that old teacher, the old, teacher of the law come out where he's going like, or he's thinking James in the back of his head. He's like,
Well, because James, for people who don't know, James would be the leader of the Jewish community that's maybe going to be calling him to account when he comes back to Jerusalem, right?
And they did. I mean, like Peter was afraid of James and just James's friends in Galatians.
Yeah.
I mean, James' friends show up and he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to eat with the Gauls or the Galatians because I don't want James's folks to give me crap when I get back." So that type of conflict to me is really beautiful, and to see someone kind of wrestling with their own faith and with grace, and because I think you could argue in some ways that Paul sometimes seems like a universalist.
Oh yeah, in Romans especially he does. Yeah,
and Galatians as well. And so, but you can see there's this kind of wrestling going on with the law, and because I think when Paul went and met with the disciples and was like, or the apostles, and it was like, I want to reach out to the Gentiles, and they're like, sure, yeah, but make sure you do this. I've always thought that I haven't always thought this. I've recently been thinking about it, is that they probably didn't think he was going to do much.
Oh, nice.
I have the feeling that they were just being like, yeah, great, and help the poor too, buddy. We'll see ya.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, I has that
Like,
feeling.
you'll be back in a month.
Yeah, I mean, in Galatians, he's defending himself. Even in Rome, he defends himself. He's constantly like having to prove who he is. And, because people are saying, well, he's not a real apostle. Well, he never walked with Jesus. You know what I mean? And so he'll get real defensive and real fiery. Sometimes I imagine the scribe sitting down and Paul just pacing back and forth. The scribe being like, slow down, and so when Paul slows down, he loses his train of thought. So, you get what you get in Romans,
Now, so what do you think there's something about that picture you've created in your mind about Paul, which we all do, and I like it a lot. Do you think that there's something about that is autobiographical for you? Like, here's Paul, kind of a conflicted guy, got a lot in him. He's got a past that he's trying to reconcile a bit with his current life, and maybe he's got
I never thought of it that
a powerful father of the faith figure hanging over him.
Yeah.
In James, and he's that.
You might be right, psychiatrist. Psychology Today.
Well, and I think that's a good thing, right? Because I think that we should all. I think we've ended up with a Christianity that's built far too much around doctrinal assumptions than around personal narratives.
Yeah.
And so people are unwilling. Sometimes when people are outed for their own spiritual path or spiritual assumptions or statements about God are obviously coming from their own internal work, which I've got a bunch of that stuff I've realized in my life kind of going on. There's a part of me that feels like what I should do is hide that away so that people don't think it's just me working out my stuff.
Yeah.
Because if that's what it is, then they'll just dismiss it as not being important.
Right.
Like, and what's in that, right? What is it about us that makes us think, oh, if your assumptions about God are really coming out of your rich history, then that's probably not trustworthy.
Well, you know what's strange is I think that's maybe where revolution is comfortable with that kind of idea, is that we're all kind of working this thing out. You know, I mean, we're all in New York, so it's, you know, you probably don't have a lot of friends. You're working things out. You're coming from your own relationship. I mean, that's when the idea of a personal Jesus that some people are like, say, oh, you can't have a personal Jesus. You got to be, it's got to be a community. But I think in New York, you see a lot of people whose faith is very personal, just because they don't have a big congregation. They don't want to go to a big congregation, or they're too busy to go to anywhere else. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing. And we're able to, you know, I always speak out of experience because that's all I have. You know, I didn't go to Bible college. I didn't go to seminary. I'm self-taught. Because I have dyslexia, I have to teach myself, so I had to go buy all these books back when everybody bought books. Yeah. And, you know, I would go to Bible bookstores or Christian bookstores. It's so funny because people are like, where do you get your liberal theology from? I'm like, well, from the Zondervan Study Guide, you know? I don't know.
Well, Jay, I'm going to take a little break here, and then we're going to come back, and I want to ask you a little bit about that, about your own thoughts on what it's like now for you to be categorized on the continuum of conservative liberalism on the liberal side, because I don't think. Anyway, I want to get to that after our little break.
These look like Star Trek.